Hello, everybody. It is DarkCon, and yes, I am back with Strike Force, and it's Sunday afternoon right now, and you probably would more expect a Sunday afternoon Strike Force news stream, but that is not this time. Right now, it is an interview stream with a new guy within our circles who has some rather interesting, to say the least, political beliefs. That being the GeoConservative. Introduce yourself, GeoCon.
Hello there. My name is Mr. GeoCon. I have a YouTube channel called the GeoConservative that has no videos today, as of today, because I am so hilariously incompetent with technology that I can't figure out how to produce videos. But that's neither here nor there. I have been doing a lot of reading lately, and you'll see me on Twitter occasionally arguing with um, various leftists. I like to be a little bit of a contrarian on there, and I'm hoping that one day Twitter
Also,
will.
also right-wing libertarians.
Well, we can get to that. Um, there's a lot I can say about libertarians. One of which being that sometimes they tend to be more of a. I mean, I don't know what the I don't know what. I mean, you're talking about the context of something that happened several weeks ago. I barely.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what sparked me to want to do this live stream. Is that I saw you get in an argument with S Man Speaks and kind of brawling it out, like letting out some of the problems that you had with the libertarians on S Man, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? Fuck it. I think I'm going to interview slash debate this guy, and I don't expect this to be like a full on debate, but there will probably be plenty of moments where it will get kind of debatey here. And I'm also going to tell you, you're probably not going to like this in particular, Geocon, but a lot of people are shipping us two together, apparently.
Well, it's I, I'm. It's kind of a novelty to know that it's happened to me, but this is the internet. The internet is weird. It's full of weirdos. I mean, there's a. I think there. I've seen every kind of position have some kind of defender on this world wide web. You know, I've seen people say the craziest stuff.
Yeah, the internet is so weird that people even make black, like thick girl versions of Winnie the Pooh. Like a picture of that just got shared in one of my Twitter groups.
Oh
I
God.
fucking hate that. Like, don't ruin Winnie the Pooh for me. But that's my inner child speaking out. But anyway, so
Well,
getting
it's taking something associated with childhood and innocence and perverting it. I mean, that's in the truest
eh.
word, perversion.
I will say that in my opinion, it is a perversion because hey, you're not improving on it. You're just ruining it. But anyway, so for this interview, or I will not say interview or debate for this live stream, I will say right now, I just want to like lay out the groundwork that there is a philosophical position and then there's a legal position. And in a lot of this debate, that is what I'm going to want to do is try to differentiate the philosophical and legal positions, kind of like how I was trying to do with Voltaire a little over a year back. Like at first I thought he thought that philosophically that I don't know, it's still kind of a crappy I guess it can still be considered a rather crappy position to take to even think that you philosophically think that women shouldn't even vote. But not only that, but he also thought that that was also his legal position. Like they should be just
Well,
outright legally banned. And so that's what I want to do
well,
here with talking about your social beliefs as well. Because on the philosophical side of things, I think you, I, and a lot of people can quibble all day long about the philosophical side of a social belief. But when it comes to a legal position, that is where the real disagreement is right here. So you're about to say something?
So you're referring to the distinction made in political philosophy that not if something just because something is not morally permissible, that doesn't mean it should be prohibited in a legal sense. That
I
there
wouldn't use the word permissible. I would say though, it's a different. A thing can be like moral, or excuse me, something can be considered immoral, but at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that the government should step in on that immorality taking place because who knows, the morality could be so freaking subjective. Like, I'm not necessarily a moral subjectivist. I do think that there are some morals that are objective, like you cannot murder, rape anybody, or anything else like that for that matter. Um, but something, say for example, a kid lying to their own parents. Like, obviously, any person with two brain cells will think that's immoral, but should the government step in the parents' own duties? No, I'll say not.
oh there's a lot of considerations to go into there. Like for instance there is the principle of subsidiarity, um, which is a large part of my philosophy. The idea of subsidiarity is that the lowest level authority should be the first responder, and if that authority cannot handle the problem, then it moves up to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and it starts with the parents, the it starts with the individual, then it
I
goes
would
to
say
the parents and the head, and then it goes to the community and the local government, and then it can go to state government and federal government, and then perhaps like a coalition of nations. It's basically an idea of federalism.
what I will say.
Um,
You're talking about the progression of power. Well, with that right there, I can agree. Like, if it's, say, if the immorality that is happening gets so extensive and grand a scale to the point that a bigger entity will have to intervene or something like that. I mean, this is arguing if there is to be a government that exists. ANCAPs, by the way, I have a lot of ANCAPs in my subscriber base, just a heads up on that one. But so, anyway, say that, for example, there are protests or maybe even riots in a given city. I believe that first and foremost, that should be more handled on the local level. And if it gets very severe, which there's a chance that it could get even more severe, then the state government steps in. But if it gets so severe that I don't know, the freaking city is set ablaze or something, well then maybe one can make an argument that that is when that the federal government will have to step in with its powers to try to cool down and fan the flames, or not fan the flames. That's probably the wrong
Put
saying,
out
but
the
just
flames.
cool. Yeah, put out the flames, because fanning the flames would mean to you fan flames, the flames are just going to
I
get
know what
bigger.
it.
So
I know what ending the
yeah,
flames.
that I was just one to
I
correct myself on that point. But
Yes, but it's important to mention
but
that
as far as um
subsidiarity is not merely a prudential is not no sorry. Subsidiarity is not merely just a matter of prudence, it's also a matter of justice. The It's prudent that it's just practical that local authorities be the handlers of problems, because a local authority, if you're closer to the ground, have you're going to be able to take into account the needs of that community.
mhm.
But the but there's also a side of things that deals with justice and subsidiarity. It's unjust to not adhere to the principle of subsidiarity, because the you're essentially circumventing the rights of that local authority when you do
It sounds
so.
like that what you're talking about is republicanism or federalism rather. Um,
Well,
let
I
the
am.
go on.
Oh well, yeah. There federalism to a yes, it is federalism to an extent. Although
Where that the
I
smaller
understand.
governments, where that the smaller governments should have more power over their small area, um, more power over that area than the federal government should. Is what I'm trying to
Oh
get
yes,
at.
definitely. Yeah, yes. That's what it's. It's a large part of why I think there's such a huge a large part of why there are such huge divisions in our societies because is simply because our society has become too diverse in just how different areas think, different areas of the society think. And I think that
Okay.
instilling a measure of local control over these areas will mean that there wouldn't be this race to have top down authority on everybody and force the one person's worldview over everybody else. I
Mhm.
think that would just be a practical solution to the problem. I don't think that's going to happen though, considering the direction of American politics is centralization.
And so, rewinding this all back to the example that I brought up of kids lying to their parents, how everybody thinks that that is wrong, that the kid would be lying to their parents. Like, say, they took a cookie out of the cookie jar, and then they say later, no, I did not take a cookie out of the cookie jar. Um, you and I would, you would agree that the government should not step into the step in between there and take over the parental duties.
Well, yes, it would be an abridgment of the rights of the parents because the parent has a
All
duty
right.
to chastise the child, and ought implies can. So if the state were to interfere in that, that would be abridgment of the parent's rights because the parent is supreme in raising a child. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also a matter of practicality too that the
Nobody
government
like a parent is going to
can't the government can't just snap its finger and outlaw lying. It can't snap its finger and outlaw being an asshole.
snap its
you
finger.
know,
Yeah.
that's
Is that
kind
supposed to be an
that's the
Avengers
kind
Endgame
of
reference?
no,
No,
because
no, no. I'm joking. I'm joking.
uh, well, uh, it's there was a great video by this one YouTuber named the Distributist who pointed out that there's the that there is that hate speech laws are basically an attempt to outlaw being an asshole, but and that seems morally correct on some level. The problem is being that you can never actually do that. So what you end up doing instead is you always have to, historically speaking, you have to outlaw being an asshole towards a certain privileged group of people, which is now in the past that was insulting the nobility. You couldn't insult the nobility, you couldn't insult uh, God or the priesthood. Now it's you can't insult minority groups
Uh,
vaguely defined.
if I may, if I might intervene here a second, I think we might be getting off on a little bit too much of a tangent. Unless that was
Oh,
supposed to
I can do
connect,
that.
unless that was supposed to connect somehow to the government stepping in on the smallest immoralities, like kids lying to their parents.
Yeah, it was that I was trying to really explain the whole a lot of the finer points with that is that the government it's unjust on a moral level, and it's also impractical for the government to get involved in
Right.
every single small dispute.
All right. And on that note, if I may ask before going on to the next subject, like, are you in Central Standard Time?
I am. So it's 4 p.m. where I am
All
right
right.
now.
So when was you want to end this stream? 5.
Around 4:45, 4:30 in that time period.
All right. So we don't have a whole lot of time. There are some things that I was kind of in particular want to ask about. So the biggest thing and the thing that kind of raises a big red flag for me and everybody else when they go thinking about you, like, no offense, Geocon, but this is just a fact that when people think Geocon, they think this subject, and that is sodomy laws. Like, just on the surface, hearing about these sodomy laws, they sound more like anti sodomy laws, into where no homosexual couple can, like, practice homosexual sex or some homosexual acts and so forth. So I was just wanting to pry a little bit. Well, not, I guess pry might be the wrong word, but I was just wanting to query you about that. What do you mean when you want to implement sodomy laws? And do I have that correct that you want to implement sodomy laws?
Well, I don't. Well, I don't think I've ever actually argued for uh, or any specific political policy on homosexuality, and quite frankly,
Okay. So it isn't
quite
it,
frankly,
so there isn't any specifics. It's just a general idea of what you want, legally
I
speaking.
think I think now I do think that it is legitimate for the state, for at the very least, the local governments to get involved in regulating a person's sexual activity. Though to what extent, though to one extent, I'm not really sure. Sure, I'm not really sure at this moment. I'll have to do more research into that.
Okay.
Most of my arguments have to do with my philosophical and ethical problems with more legitimizing same sex couples.
Okay.
The I mean, there's uh, the political permissiveness flows from the ethical permissiveness, so to speak.
And
Um,
if I may, like, explain my own beliefs on sexuality, like, even on the philosophical side, I couldn't really care less to be, like, making videos and political commentary about it. The only way that you can make me care about issues of sexuality is if either, like, on the right side of things you want to ban homosexuality, or on the left side of things you want to put in pronoun laws to where people must call you he if you want to be called he, or she if you want to be called she, or etc., etc. That is when that I get concerned with the whole sexuality thing. But when it comes to sexuality, I feel like I could
if you
talk about
have
it all day, but not really care so much about it, even in the philosophical side. It's when you want to implement laws that when I start to care about the issue. You were saying?
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't think I'll. I'm not. I don't. At this current moment, I'm not advocating for any kind of sodomy laws. Even if
Oh,
that.
wait. You
Even if
don't.
I.
You're not advocating for sodomy laws to be put in place into law.
Well, first of all, where would I advocate? Who would I go to get actually implemented practically?
Well, I do not know. I mean, that's
Well,
why I'm
exactly.
asking. I mean,
I
at
don't.
the moment,
I'm asking you. I
here's
mean,
the thing. I mean, I never mentioned the possibility. I never said where or how much there was the possibility that you could actually get your way in banning homosexuality, for example. I'm just asking you about your beliefs and what you want legally speaking. Not saying that it's easy enough for you to get what you want legally speaking. I'm just asking what do you personally want legally speaking.
well, I mean,
But you're saying
there's-
it sounded like what you said earlier was that at this moment, as it currently stands, you do not know what you want implemented into law as far as sexuality goes.
well, there's
Am I
two
wrong?
problems. Well, yeah. There are two problems here. The first problem is a problem of practicality. Practically speaking, there's no way.
Well,
There's no.
let's put practicality aside. I'm asking about your beliefs,
I
your
think
ideal, rather.
I just said I just said, uh, ideally speaking, the state would be the state or some kind of other local authority would be in would be regulating a person's private sexual activity,
Oh, okay.
or
So
at the very least, public expressions of it.
okay, public expressions of it. So, in other words, if somebody wants to set up a gay pride parade, like even on their private property, say for example, they can't do that,
No, no, I don't think I would.
or
I
even say even if
ideally
they don't have any kids involved in a gay pride parade.
Ideally speaking, there would we would be. I think that the local government would be a local government that rejected a gay pride parade and prevented them from performing that parade would be morally justified.
Morally justified. I'm going to ask how a little bit later. Um, Moral justification. But what I want to ask you right now is okay. So we covered gay pride things, and still on extension on what ought to be publicly allowed. Can two homosexual people kiss on a public in a public space like a park or the street or whatever?
Well, that would be. I mean, I guess that. Well, I think it would be morally legitimate to not allow them.
Morally legitimate.
Yes, it would be perfectly fine to not allow them to kiss.
Mm, okay, so by that
I mean,
extension, should
we have public,
by that
we have
by that
public.
by that extension, should heterosexual couples be banned from kissing in public?
Well, you can if you want, but I don't think it's as important. Is as important.
Okay, so you personally say no on that, but if somebody were to do it, you wouldn't throw a big, huge fit over it.
No, not really.
Okay. Um, what was that? Okay. What about a private setting? Like, say, for example, to gay people, they just keep it in the bedroom. Do you think that there should
Well,
be laws preventing people from even practicing homosexuality in their own house?
well, there's no way the police would be able to just break into people's homes and see if they're see if they're kissing or not.
Mm, well, they could, but that would be probably more authoritarian than some people are willing to go, than what lengths some people are willing to go. Like, have cameras, government spying cameras
Well, we
set up in
already
every
have.
house.
Well, we already do have the some a surveillance state. I'd want.
You talking about with NSA spying?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to
Okay.
get.
Say for
I'd
example.
like to get rid of is NSA. I mean, I'd like to get rid of the NSA surveillance state
Hmm,
because I think it's creepy and just wrong.
okay.
I
So
know.
let that go
Sorry,
on.
I'm not being
What?
sorry, I'm not being completely coherent right now. I'm flying off the seat of my pants, so to
Oh
speak.
no, it's all right, but I think I got the point there. Let that go on record, everybody. GeoCon is against NSA spying. So
The
yeah,
surveillance state in general, yeah, yeah, and I'm also against all these overseas interventions and foreign wars. I think
so
I think any pro-life person should be against what's going on with our military at the moment.
oh
Uh,
sure,
Killing of innocent people every day. It's
sure.
just overwhelming to me, and I think
Okay,
I
and so if I may slow down here for a second, what was I gonna ask? So you're against surveillance on private citizens. So ultimately, you don't think homosexuals should be banned from practicing homosexuality in their own homes.
well, of course not. But
All
here's
right.
yeah, here's the deal. We already have on the books laws against public nudity and laws against public drunkenness. So this would just be laws against public homosexuality.
Hmm. Might have
That's the
laws, but I don't know. I almost I don't know. I think that should be more handled on the social level of things rather than the legal level of things. Like, um,
I can understand that. Yeah.
people should just frown upon it and shun it out of society. Nudity, I mean, more specifically, not necessarily laws against it. That's me personally speaking, right there.
Well, I don't see any
Do I
wrong
think that
against
somebody should?
laws.
What? Sorry.
I don't think there's anything wrong with laws against public nudity. I don't think that's like a creeping totalitarianism or something.
Okay. What was I gonna ask? I guess I'll go on it and ask. Well, actually, on extension of what you want allowed and not allowed as far as society goes, can like a private company make a movie where they feature two people of the same sex kissing one another?
Mm, that's actually a very that's actually a rather complicated issue. You see, there's the we did have
I
we
would say
did
just
have
outright yes, personally, but go on.
well, yes, there's the I think there is a lot to I think there is the gosh, how should I put it? I think we already do have standards for what would be what should be allowed on television or not, and what
Yeah,
uh,
but
and
not that I not
can,
that doesn't necessarily make it right though. I would say.
well, that does. I mean, but we already have a precedent for it. Yeah, is what I'm saying, and
Hmm.
I don't really. There's the it's I guess there's a lot. I think there's a lot. It'll have to depend on the circumstance of it. You know, if it's the, I mean, it would have to depend on what the purpose behind that is. Why they decided to, what the purpose of that is, what effect would it have on the public morality, and so on and so forth.
All right.
Um,
I'm just taking down chat comments here, by the way. Red Feather agrees. She says, "Well, I 100% agree that kids shouldn't be involved in those marches and gay pride marches, more specifically." And Faith, otherwise known in the chat, asks, "What's his thoughts on weed?" We're gonna try to get to that subject here later in this interview. Faith, don't you worry. Um, but you were one to like. Did you have more of a point to make?
it's just look. I'm right now my priorities of what I want politically do not include do not include trying to ban homosexual movies or something like that. We can bear right
Okay.
if we're talking about my side, if we're talking about quote unquote my side, the social conservatives, we are strictly on the defensive right. We in the I we do not, even if I is someone like me, I don't want, even if someone like me is against certain certain acts being portrayed positively in public, and I do have good reasons for not thinking that positive portrayals of homosexuality are bad for society. Even if I were to say that, the fact that the left holds so much power in our centralized institutions means that any attempt to implement that would only lead to my own ruin. So there's no real reason for me to side with I mean, will I work with a leftist who say a left wing feminist who say knows that the problems with pornography and wants to have some kind of wants to enforce the prohibitions on porn that are already in place and are just not being.
You're talking about the sex worker exclusionary radical feminists, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, yeah, yeah. If they if we want to but we have to deal with problems as they are. We have to be on the defensive. We can't just go around acting as if we control everything, you know. And that's a huge problem with a lot of conservatives in the modern era. They seem to have this. I don't want to say entitled, but they seem to have this delusional attitude that they are still the moral majority and that everybody
The moral
agrees.
majority. Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah, moral majority. It's an old phrase from the Reagan days. It
Okay. By the way,
refers to
I just want to add that you kind of sound like that you are slightly breaking up throughout a lot of this call. I don't know what it is.
oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's my internet. It's terrible.
I'm getting the gist of what you're saying throughout this dialogue, but I thought I'd just mention that before it gets worse.
Well, oh yeah, yeah. It's all right. Well, the social conservatives do not control things, and I recognize that. Most people in society do not agree with my views. Most people in society would probably would say, "Oh, they're authoritarian and evil and radical," even though most of those people who denounce my views as authoritarian are themselves like far left tankies or whatever.
Sorry. By the way, the reaction I'm giving right now, I do not know if you can see me, is because of something that's been posted in the chat.
What? Which one?
The live chat here on the stream.
Night
Night
shift.
Shift 10,000 says, "I want gay trans pansexuals to be able to get married and to use heavy machine guns to protect their recreational cocaine gardens and dog porn magazines." Okay,
Oh, good grief.
what really got to me right there was the dog porn magazines. Like, I don't know about that Night Shift, but the rest of it, I would say, yeah, nobody nobody should get involved in that. Yeah.
I guess the main problem if we can move on to my main problem with these anti-socially conservative libertarians.
Hold on a second. There's like a few other questions I do not know. A few other questions
Oh, I'm
directed to
sorry.
me. There's a few other questions here from the chat, asking of what extent you would like laws to go to if you had your way legislatively. Brandon
Well, what's
Paget, what?
I mean, what is the? Here's the thing, though. Like, how is this even relevant about like what I would want ideally? I mean, ideally, I would want everybody to be a millionaire and everybody to have a happy life. We can't.
Maybe the word ideally is not the right word specifically, but if you did have the political capital, say for example, to make laws on whatever that you want, like obviously you cannot make a law that, hey, you shall be a millionaire, like you just mentioned for example there, but what is to be allowed and not allowed in law is what I mean.
Mm.
But I don't know. We might not be able to. We not might not be able to get to most of these questions, but Brandon Paget asks, banning gay marriage will just create more people you and me hate, GeoCon. You are going to have to give up on that, GeoCon, if you want gay marriage banned. The majority of Republicans support gay marriage. And Feifei says, yeah, even most Republicans support gay marriage. You're right. I mean, I would say that the average Joe Republicans, they definitely have kind of given up on the subject, and at least half, if not more, of Republican politicians kind of given up on that subject. As you
Well,
mentioned on
yeah,
past streams
it's
before, Trump waving around gay pride flag.
yep. That's I mean, we a lot of people call the Republicans conservatives for a reason. They're they've basically conceded to the left on so many different issues that are really that they really shouldn't have conceded on.
Now hold on.
But,
Is it really cucking out, or is it a legitimate changing of beliefs? Like there was a time that I
it's
was.
cucking out. It was cucking out. It. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people who honestly change their minds, but you have to be blind not to see that there was a definite push in a lot of the elite circles to go for this. Gay rights was the next big civil rights issue, and civil rights has been a main driving force for the left. Their main winning strategy for the past say
I I,
50
I wouldn't
so
call I wouldn't
and
call it
so
I wouldn't call it cucking out. I would call it finding out that this ain't a hill worth dying on.
that's cucking out. Well, I mean,
What
we can.
the more central issues that Republicans seem to hold dear is gun rights and economic liberties for the most part. Anyways, like there are some economic issues, I guess, that Republicans are a little bit more left leaning on than some others, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, that's more the central focus. Oh, and immigration as well. Of course, immigration. Like, they care a whole lot more about illegal immigration than whether or not Beavis and Butthead butt fuck each other.
Oh well.
Those are
the
the first
Let's
two
see.
names that came up in my mind.
Oh well. I don't want to. I that image. That image. Okay. Anyway.
I
So
could be kind of
the
crude on my streams, just FYI.
but it's just the image of Beavis and Butthead in any doing anything, and it's more
um,
offended by Beavis and Butthead than homosexuality.
well, speaking of homosexuality, Brandon also asks, what about gay bars and clubs? Like, can a person like set up within their private business a privately owned gay club or whatever?
Yes, but we like to call those areas red light districts.
Red light districts.
Yes, you've heard you know about the idea
That
of.
I
I
mean,
mean,
just off the surface, that sounds kind of like a form of segregation.
yes. I mean, I mean, this is a huge problem that I have with the conversation. Any kind of in
Uh,
the left seem want to destroy everything that any kind of legitimate segregation or separation, even even private association is being eroded as a reasonable justification for segregation. You know, it's the
I think the reason as to why people don't care and say even in fact allow it is people are having a more of a live and let live type of mindset.
that's not what I'm seeing from people. I'm seeing segregation is evil and wrong, and we got to get rid of it
Oh
through
whoa.
force if necessary. I mean, that's what I don't know. In case you haven't couldn't
Yeah,
tell, the
because
libertarians aren't really in the halls of power either. Who's in the hall of power?
not
Well,
exactly,
it's
but
center leftists and center leftists, Democrats, a couple of far leftists trying to gin up the center leftists, and a few center right Republicans that have conceded almost every issue and are just basically progressives
mm,
brakes on.
not almost every issue. I mean, there's still like a whole litany of other issues that we, and by we, I mean, I include myself when I say we, that we are fighting against leftists on. And the reason as to why
And
people
I'll
are against segregation, or more specifically government enforced segregation, Like if say somebody in their private business they want to separate off, like you for example, you run your own privately owned business and you want to separate uh gay people and straights from associating from each other in your business, well then fine, that's your private property rights. I would disagree, but still. But the reason why people are against that on the government level is because that's rather authoritarian. Like what if people just want to get along with some gay person that just has a likable personality, or they find agreeable rather. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I actually had a couple of bisexual roommates. No, there's nothing that happened, people, by the way. And they had a more likable personality than the two former roommates that I had in this time
Oh,
period that I'm talking about.
that's good. That's good for you. You have gay friends.
Exactly, exactly. And I don't really want to be segregated away from them because I
Well, that's not really what I said, though, was it?
well, I don't know. You seem to be kind of laughing off the
Well,
people being against segregation when you
well,
say it's
it's because the I'm laughing at the idea that any kind of segregation is bad. Like as if we can't and we aren't allowed to distinguish between different things. For instance,
nah.
there is
There's a difference between distinguishing the differences between people and then outright forcefully separating them from each other.
well, if I want to set up like a strip club in a certain area, and I want to set in, should I be allowed to set up a strip club in an area where there's a lot of families with kids?
Mhm.
It's that kind of thing. And traditionally speaking, and this goes
You
all back
could.
and this goes all the way back to Saint Augustine when he made his distinction between the city of God and the city of man. That he made the point that, and you might like this as a libertarian. He made the point that you can't really make illegal all the bad things in the world, because if you do, that will only escalate the problem in some circumstances. So the only
Yeah.
the only thing you can do is regulate it, to regulate it and mitigate it. Sort of separate. You have a so you can have a little section of the city, a red light district, where you have the strip clubs and your gay bars and all of your sinful and all the other sinful activities, and then you keep it out of the nicer neighborhoods.
Now, if I may ask, is this something that you're actually advocating? Is that the government set up red light districts for gay
Well, I would.
people and
Well,
drug use and whatnot?
I would be. Well, I think it would be perfectly within the authority of a local government, not necessarily a
But do
federal
you
government.
advocate for it?
I think it would be ideal. Yes.
Okay. Well,
Well, I mean, I
okay,
mean,
so you
it's kind
mentioned
of.
you mentioned a little bit earlier that you think that there's a moral justification to setting up all these heavy regulations on homosexuality. And I guess I'll like rewind the conversation back a bit and ask you, what is the moral justification? Like, why do you think that it's a good thing, and rather people should advocate for regulating gay people, segregating them away from straight people and whatnot?
I never said that. I, I mean, did you
Okay,
even?
okay,
I don't
you're
think
talking
I.
about okay. So what I'm gathering is that you think that they should only practice their homosexuality in in these red light districts.
Yes, or in a private setting. It's kind of the and now this is something that is brought up by a formerly libertarian, now conservative philosopher named Edward Fazer, who he wrote for the Mises Institute once upon a time, but now he doesn't anymore because he's a conservative now. and the Mises, Walter Block was kind of went into apoplectic rage over Fezzer because Fezzer made a good point and Walter Block come up with a good argument, so he just called Fezzer a fascist or something. It was just typical Walter Block. But anyway, Fezzer
Okay.
brought up.
Well, okay. We're getting kind of short on this interview though. Before you have to go, I want to like
Well,
ask again.
I'm
What do you think is the moral justification for setting up these red light districts to where homosexual a homosexual couple cannot kiss each other in a plain public street? No, you must. You're only allowed to kiss in the red light district. What's the moral justification in that?
well. We have there are certain laws that there's it all has to do with. Sorry, I have to gather my thoughts. It all has to do with the idea that you cannot use your private property to interfere with a person with the exercise of a person's natural capacities.
Wait. We're not talking about private property necessarily.
Well, I we are actually.
Well,
If
I'm
you're
talking about like a public street, for example. Like, yes, ANCAPs would, to all my ANCAP subscribers, they would prefer that publicly owned streets, publicly owned roads weren't a thing. But for right now, we're just taking this issue as it is. Two gay
but if
people
there's an
like
owner to
kissing on
no,
a publicly owned street. No, you don't want that. You want them to do it specifically in the red light district.
yes, and the reason why is that
Okay.
it can constitute a form of moral pollution. Essentially, it's the corrupt. The idea is that people have a right to live in an environment that is free from that kind of corrupting influence because it can damage the ability to act in a virtuous and ethical manner.
Corrupting influence. Another way that somebody
Yes.
could have a quote unquote corrupting influence is if they're like expressing a different political belief that other people hear and it corrupts them or something or other. It's almost like you say that people supposedly have a right to not be in an environment that has a corrupting influence. That almost opens the door to something that opens the door to something like that, like censoring certain opinions or more specifically on the issue that we're talking about right here, putting homosexual people in the red light districts if they're practicing homosexuality.
We can talk about why you. Well, why? Here's the thing, though. Why would it's just kind of you do bring up a good point there, but I think there's other considerations that political speech has um, that homosexual actions do not have. That I don't think that sex acts are protected under free speech, for instance.
No, they're not. They're not speech, but I mean, I don't recall anybody ever saying technically that gay marriage should be allowed because of free speech. But they just say gay marriage should be allowed because it's not harming anybody.
Well,
Like,
well,
thus,
it's
why should the government get involved? And
well, for
if
one
it
thing,
go on.
for one thing, of gay marriage to say that first of all, gay marriage actually does not exist. It's a legal fiction.
Okay,
If
well, the
you look
definition that
at
I've
the
looked up of Merriam-Webster, I can look it up again here for this moment. From Merriam-Webster, it doesn't say explicitly one man and one woman. It says two people just in general. So that's the definition I'm
well,
going off of. But I will.
that is a recent redefinition. Yes, it
Okay.
it
And
doesn't really
until
make
like
sense.
until
It does.
until the definition gets turned back to there, though, I don't know. I don't really
Well,
see
I
the
mean, who writes the dictionaries though?
people.
Well, exactly. I mean, do you want?
Whoever runs the Merriam-Webster website and so forth.
I mean, there's so much that is kind of wrong with the current.
But I
Hold
don't
on,
know.
somebody's at my.
Okay. I want to hey, how is everybody doing right now? A bit of a passionate discussion here, if not a flat out argument. Um, oh, so you're back, GeoCon?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
so
what
I don't want to
was
go on a big semantics debate. So, you know what? It's whatever. Let's not. I'm not even
well,
going to say gay marriage. Let's just say
it's the
homosexuality or homosexual acts or whatever. I can't even remember what point I
well.
was on before we got talking about semantics of marriage.
Well, you said that the government there's no reason for the government to be involved with marriage. Well, one reason for the government to be involved with marriage is because marriage is the only a marriage is the only healthy environment that can safely raise children, and children are our future. And that I think that the state has
I mean,
the legitimate
unless that marriage is a toxic one between the two spouses that
well,
cannot get
because,
along together well.
I
So,
mean, do you want to
to say that marriage is like the only environment, or I'm paraphrasing by the way, that to say that marriage is the only ideal environment for raising kids, it's kind of subjective on a case by case basis,
not really
depending on the
not
people
really.
that are married.
If we're talking now, come on, man. We know you've read Thomas Sowell, right? You know about the problems with single parent households and
Hey,
how reliable.
I did not advocate for single parent households. I'm not
Well,
saying
but you're basically
no,
advocating for a position. You're advocating for a position of indifference. That is base. You are basically saying
no,
between in single
no.
parent households and generally speaking, single parent households and the normal golden standard two family, there's not really any appreciable difference,
I'm
and it's
not
all case by
I'm
case
not
basis.
advocating for indifference. So I guess if you want to go off on a limb, the only indifference I'm advocating for is from the government. Like the government get outright not involved in marriage. I'm more of the in the pendulette camp when it comes to this issue. As he said once, it's rather creepy for the government to be knowing who you're having sex with.
Well, I
But
don't. Well,
as far as my own feelings though, I'm not indifferent to what type of relationships should go on. I think it would be best if a kid was raised in a one man, one woman married couple household. Ideally, though, although as far as but also I'm for allowing gay people to adopt if they want to, but that's a little bit of a different story. I'm for allowing it though. It doesn't necessarily mean that I outright want it to happen philosophically speaking, but even philosophically speaking, I don't care enough because yeah, I would rather more gay people adopted than more abortions happened or more kids just end up stuck in the foster care system for all their life, pretty much. But no, I'm not expressing an indifference on the issue of what type of relationships should be the case.
you're well. I don't. Okay, then. So you have so the only real difference there is that I think the state has a legitimate duty to make sure that kids are raised properly.
Hmm. Well,
I mean,
define raised properly because some people say that spanking should not happen at all.
well, they'd be wrong, but
I mean, I would agree with you, but should the government be outright mandating that parents should apply spankings? I mean, some parents might legitimately not even need to apply spankings, hardly at all, if at all, ever in their parenting life.
well, we can. Well, the state is only a force of prohibition. We can't. The state shouldn't
Okay.
be the state shouldn't be used to coerce somebody to do some positive action. It should only be used to take certain actions off the table.
All right. That makes sense, but it still makes the point that is okay. I can't remember what the exact word that you were that you were saying earlier, but you said something along the lines of proper parenting is the business of the government to get involved. But the point
Well,
still
yes,
stands, but what is considered proper parenting is kind of subjective. Like, do you teach your kids a religion or do you refrain from teaching them religion?
well, it's we can know what proper parenting doesn't look like. For instance, we can know that if our imaginary parents are these evil assholes who torture their children, we
Right.
know we know that's not good parenting, and we should
Mm-hmm.
we
You're
know
talking
that
you're
if
talking
we
on the
know
more objective level, though. I was talking on the more subjective level. Go on, though.
there isn't really a subjective level. There's only differences of opinion. I mean, we can.
What's the what's the difference in that?
I mean, what I mean,
Opinions
there's
are subjectivity.
okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of. I don't really understand where you are coming from here. I mean, I'm just kind of confused as to like where do you want to this whole conversation seems to be about me want you asking, oh, what's proper parenting, what's this, what's that. I mean,
Well,
it's
you
just
were mentioning, well, to bring it back to what you were saying, like you mentioned parents should not torture their kids. Obviously, we can agree that is outright bad parenting right there. And uh, it seems that you are attaching what is proper parenting to what the identity of the parents are almost. Am I wrong in saying that?
what do you mean by the identity? I mean,
Like for example, a gay couple could even apply spankings to their kids if they get really unruly.
but a gay couple is not a proper parent.
Well, okay. I mean,
Well, they can't.
use the word guardian if you would prefer, but
Well,
that would be kind of your
it's
opinion.
not they can't be. Well, it's objectively true that homosexuals shouldn't be allowed to raise children. I mean,
I
if
would
we're
rather
talking about
I would
if we're
rather
talking
that
about
than they be living in the foster care system for all their 18 years as a kid, legally as a kid, anyways.
why is that a choice?
Why is that a choice?
I mean, you act as though that really what's happening? That gay parents are the only thing separating a kid from living a lifetime in foster care.
From living a what? No, no,
A lifetime in
okay.
foster.
No, I'm
I mean,
wanting.
there's
No, here's the thing. I mean, if you open up the possibilities of who can adopt these children, you're going to end up with more of them getting adopted. Like, allow more people to be adopted. It's kind of
okay,
in the
but
same way.
why
Like,
would we?
go on.
But why would we want to open up the possibility of adoption to just anybody?
Well, because I mean, is living a lifetime in foster care more ideal than living with parents? A parental
Well,
structure?
I don't agree that homosexuals can be proper parents.
Hmm. I would, I guess, of my own subjective opinion, I could more or less agree with that. But on the other
Oh,
hand, but
we have. Sorry, go on.
I thought, were you talking to somebody else for a second there?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing in some guys in the get some guys in the thing saying, "Oh, this
Live
is
chat.
the oh yeah," some people in the live chat saying, "Oh, it's a bigot being stupid. I having two dads and two moms, blah blah blah," and I'm just like, my dude, there's a lot. Just because I don't hate gay people, all right, and I don't really see gay people as some kind of being some kind of inferior species or something like that. It's just the whole problem with this issue is that we don't really we're trying to take the actions that somebody makes and trying to create an identity out of that as if it's like an entire race of people. I mean, if you look at some of the homosexual rights activists, they said as much that they were trying to make homosexuality into a nation of people with its own language and stuff. They even
Okay,
had
that I would, I don't know, I
I
would
mean,
kind of agree. Sounds kind of crazy. I mean, the politicization of sexuality, I don't really agree with, like
well
pronoun laws, for
then
example. But
okay, so then the only issue here is that
but not all
I
gay people politicize their own sexual identity.
I know that's and that's good for them. I think that's laudable, and especially in this day and age. But I
That's
would
good for them,
uh,
or that's good in general that a gay person do not
both
politicize their own sexuality.
both. It's
Both.
good for them and good in general.
Okay, well, sorry for me, like, kind of, I don't know, I guess you could say bitching about that.
I
It
I
just
mean,
sounded kind of, it just almost sounded kind of snobbish, like if you're all like, oh, that's good for them, but I don't really agree with that, or whatever. Like, that was almost the
oh well,
implication I
it's
was getting.
both. I'm sorry. I can in word things in a I tend to word things in a very offensive manner at times, but I do think that
Oh, I didn't necessarily take offense to it, but go on.
well, yeah, it's the idea. I guess that's one of my main. It's just that I don't really. If the parents are doing something that is not, if the parents aren't, yeah, I guess it's just that I think when we're talking about parents who adopt children, people who are adopting children, I think the moral standards for the moral standards should be heightened, and also we have to take into account the child itself, the child themselves. They deserve to be raised by a mother and a father, and if we have a homosexual couple, we can't really we you can't really have a mother and a father with a homosexual couple.
I think that
You know,
well, yeah, we can, I don't know. We can talk all day long about what a child deserves, but what rights. What I'm concerned more is what rights of the child get violated more than anything else. I mean, obviously, there are two different sets of rights when it comes to parent versus child. Like, you know, pedophilia is wrong, obviously, so therefore, laws with
well,
kids and sex is more
there's
restrictive than
actually
parents and
there was a
sex.
funny thing
Or
about that.
adults and sex, I
I'm
should say.
sorry, but there was a tangent. Sorry. I guess I should leave the tangent for later. You have to get. Could you get one more question in?
One more
Um,
question. Um,
yeah, before we start wrapping up, I'd like to answer one more question from you because it's been a good talk. I do want to get back to this though when I have the opportunity at some later point because you
okay.
know I don't really have
Go on. Or no, I get. Never mind.
well
I will get on to my question then. Uh, I was want to ask you, like, get into a discussion: is homosexuality a sin? From because I am kind of almost leaning that it might not be a sin according to the Bible, but that was kind of why I was wanting to talk about it with you because you seemingly do believe that homosexuality, even according to New Covenant law, is a sin. But I guess instead of that, I'll ask you about this. Like, do you believe in what kind of drugs do you believe in banning outright? Possession of and use of.
well that is a good question. I don't really I think it really depends on the circumstances. I think that if there is a proliferation of if there is a certain type of drug that it has a wide enough negative impact on the society that's consuming it, then I think it would be more legitimate for the authorities to come in and prohibit it. That being said, I don't really have. I think marijuana, as disgusting as it is, I don't think it's particularly a particularly bad thing compared to other drugs like opioids.
Mm. All right. Uh, yeah. I mean, I personally find marijuana kind of disgusting. When somebody smokes it around me, I sniff and it smells like a combination of armpit and skunk. But at the same time, I don't think that the government should definitely not come in and ban that. I'm more apathetic towards whether or not cocaine, heroin, or the harsher drugs get banned. But overall, ultimately, I don't think that the government should get involved in those types of drugs. But something like opioids, though, why do you think that the government should get involved with that? If we got more time to talk about this?
Well, if that's the solution to the problem, then I would have no problem doing that. Of course, there are people like the libertarians on the Mises Institute who would argue that there are better solutions for that, and I'm open to hearing those solutions to the crisis. I just think that if the best solution to the problem was prohibiting the drug, then we should do it.
Okay, I don't know. It almost seems like GeoCon might have to leave soon. Uh, he just mute. Well, actually, you guys can see on Google Hangouts right here that he just muted himself. I kind of like this setup. Are you gonna have to leave soon, dude?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you heard somebody
Alright.
knock my door, shouting at the top of their lungs.
But I guess, but I guess the final question before I let you close out. So you're not so sure of what to do with opioids as far as laws go. Yet,
Well,
anyways.
to be honest, I haven't researched as much as I'd like on that issue because it's not really a huge issue. I don't think it's the biggest issue in Texas, at least.
So, in other
Um,
words, it almost sounds like that ultimately you are saying yes, you're not that sure yet.
I'm leaning towards a more libertarian solution on that front, though
Okay.
I'm open to more prohibitive measures if they're necessary. I think having a combination of approaches is necessary to deal with such a complex issue. I guess I guess it's I think when it comes down to my disagreement with the libertarians, I think that ultimately the state does have a legitimate should does have a legitimate it can be legitimately concerned with the issues regarding the family, regarding how people raise children, and I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. And because again, like I said, they are our future, and if we allow a society in which
That's kind of a collectivist mindset right there.
well, I'm who said I was ever an individualist?
Oh,
I
I wasn't. I was just pointing that out because you know typically people, I mean, bar you and not that I'm equivalating you to this particular person and Richard Spencer apparently like collectivism, although in different ways. You guys want to, yeah.
well, I mean, if I'm like Richard Spencer,
Well, you're not one to you're not advocating for collectivism on a
I
racial
mean,
level. I'm not
he
like
thought that he
again.
thinks that Richard Spencer thinks that child pornography should be legal because it helps perverts deal with their problems.
Okay,
I mean,
you've made
I'm
it
not
more than what? Sorry, go on.
I'm not he. here's the thing, though. I mean, I'm
And you
not really a
obviously
big
are
fan.
against that, though.
Well, obviously, because I'm with most sane people.
Yeah, so you've
Uh,
made it more than clear that you are not the same equivalent of Richard Spencer, but even some
I mean,
socialists, they'll like frown upon individualism and they'll advocate more for collectivism on an economic level more than anything else. But on a
well,
social
it's
level, when it comes to the family, you want to think on a more of a collective level.
well. Here's the deal. I think that there isn't this dichotomy between individualism and collectivism is sort of a false one. To say that there is to say that collectivism, in its most abstract sense, collectivism says there can be a society without individuals, and individualism says there can be individuals without society. And I disagree with both those claims. And I think that both individuals and society are real things that are not reducible to each other.
All right. So I'll let you close off right here if you want to close off.
Um, I just want to say the look. I don't really look. I want a lot. I want a lot of the same things that libertarians want to. And when I see people like S Man virtue signaling about how he hate how much he wants to see social conservatives pwned, it just makes me think that he's just it makes me think you're just preaching to the choir. I don't know, maybe to get leftists to consider libertarianism because you're not. You might be an evil capitalist, an evil greedy capitalist, but at least you're not a bigot, right? That sort of thing. And when I see that, what I can say is I don't think social conservatives have the most amount of power or on at least on most issues. We are winning a few issues like the abortion question. You saw how many states are passing anti-abortion laws, very restrictive ones, according to Andrew Neil, the British so-called conservative. He says they're going back to the dark ages with our abortion laws. Well, I don't know about you. I'd rather be I don't know why getting rid of prenatal infanticide is dark ages, but I'm only going to be advocating politically for issues I think are winning ones, and I don't see we'll be lucky. The direction we're going, we'll be lucky to have legal heterosexuality. To be honest, uh, I mean, I'm
I
being
think that's
exact.
kind of hyperbolic, but
Yes, it
whatever.
is. I am being hyperbolic, but that's the general direction we're going, not the direction of we're going to have a. Some people on the left seem to think that we're going to have this creeping theocracy in which well, they'll implement the government. Trump will implement the handmaid's tale or something like that, and I don't see that happening anytime anytime soon or really ever. But I'm not going to be this kind of issue. I mean, if we're going to be talking about the political side of things, I don't think it's all that important. The best I can do right now is just try and defend my own moral positions on this subject and why I think it's important.
All
Uh,
right. And that was it.
yeah, I'm sorry it was kind of tangent. Normally, I make notes on these things so I can stay on track, but
Right.
uh, I mean, how about this? Next time we'll have a better one where we um I really sit down with some notes and I really concentrate on this thing so I don't get off topic with complete oh night shift right wingers and left wingers want to erect their effing green totalitarian societies and both threats to our freedom. Well, with that kind of attitude, night shift, you're not going to get anywhere. Is all I'm saying. You are not getting anywhere. Well, I'll
I'm sorry. Was that supposed to be an extension of the stream, or were we closing out?
we were closing it out. I'm sorry. It's I
But
just get so distracted. I just get so distracted without my notes in front of me.
all right.
Honestly, it's
So
so bad for me.
I guess on that note, then GeoConservative, everybody. So
I
Ge-
did not do good well. I did do well here.
oh. Well, all right. If you think so, I mean, people have their opinions on how people did, but yeah, that was geoconservative, everybody, and we'll have to, yeah, we'll probably have to have another conversation with the guy sometime in the future. Probably not in the so near future, as I will explain in a live stream here in a little bit. I think I'm just going to chat here with the chat for a little while longer before I officially close out. So I'll just let you leave right now, Geocon.
All right, that's good. Talk to you later, man.
See you later. All right. So, question: how did everybody think that I do as an interviewer? I'm probably not going to be long on this stream, by the way. Just gonna, I'm just gonna query the chat just a wee bit here before I close out. Get our thoughts on air. Did great said did great said Night Shift, and Fei said you're a fine interviewer, to be honest. Well, I try to be. I have tried to improve my interviewing skills and be a little bit more challenging to my guests ever since the interview that I had with Frederick Voltaire Bastiat. Yeah, I had an interview with Voltaire and I got a whole lot of shit for that, honestly. And ever since then, I've been trying to improve, and I think I did a lot better here than in that one before. I'd actually love to be interviewed, says Faith. Oh, that's cool. But yeah, that was the geoconservative, everybody, and that was interesting, says Brandon. And Brandon also says further up in the chat, I can remember my arguments without any notes. Well, more power to you, bud. Although I do not so much blame Geocon for that one. I mean, uh, you can't see right here, but I have my own WordPad file here for this stuff written down, like subjects and questions that I wanted to bring up right here. And these were some of the chat comments that I was going to read, but we obviously did not get so in depth in the drug conversation, but it's whatever at this point. But yeah. Um, all right. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I am going to do a quick live stream here right afterward just to explain the state of the channel. Like, it's going to be more or less of a channel update than anything else. I don't plan on going long because, honestly, I got to get to my editing project on the Rin Michaelis video. But anyway, without further ado, I'm the Dark Conservatarian. That was the Conservative. And we'll see y'all later. This has been Strike Force. God bless and have a good evening.